about my love? Wasn't it enough? Just let me know.
Here's our runner-ups. All of them are different from the panel. And I'm not surprised by either one of these. I'm really not. I mean, you guys are probably surprised by my LSU take, but I only have them losing 2 games. And one of them is against a team that's not in their conference. So.
Team's out there.
Mm-hmm. You don't remember?
Continue. I'm just looking up. I don't
USC and Ole Miss is who I had them.
That's right. Yep. USC is the first
week 1.
USC is the first week. That's right.
Vegas.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think the rest of their schedule is very comparable for them to just win out if Garrett Nussmeier can put it all together.
And
if again, their defense is. I hope their defense improves too. But
they lost a lot of. I mean, again, they lost a lot of defensive talent. The only one pretty much is now Kendrick Perkins.
Harold Perkins.
Harold Perkins. Yeah. Whoops. Don't let me talk. Just cut off the mic. Y'all two go.
So Khalid, get started with the Texas, man. Why you got them as runner-ups?
So I'll just start out by saying that I have, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the SEC losing 2 conference games or less. So I think this is going to be a very competitive conference race just to get to Atlanta to play in the title game, right?
Yeah.
The margin for error here is little to none because of, how the schedule will shape out, and just the talented teams who are in this conference. Texas, though, I have them going 11-1 in the regular season. Before I get into the roster, right, I think they're going to beat Michigan in Ann Arbor. I don't think Michigan is going to be ready for a Texas team that returns a lot more talent at key positions, and where they had people leave, primarily the offensive skill position players, they replenished that with an abundance of talent, right? When you replace all those draft picks, it was a tight end, 2 running backs, and 3 receivers with, a solid tight end, and then, 2 5-stars at running back, and then 3 incredible transfers, one of whom came from Bama, and the other 2 extremely underrated additions from other now Power 5 schools. Whatever they lost on offense, they replaced with just as good players, aside from maybe tight end. Then you look at defense, right? Losing Bo Davis on the defensive line really hurts. But losing the players they did on defense is going to hurt. So I'm interested to see how they adjust there. The talent, though, is not the question with Texas. They have one of the most talented rosters in terms of pedigree from high school, just as any team in the country. It's a question now of coaching and development. Can Sarkisian continue to develop this team the way he wants? I think that they're going to be a few steps ahead of Michigan. Then you get into conference play. The only game I think they lose is Georgia. I think that they beat Oklahoma, in Dallas. I think that they beat Florida at home. They beat Kentucky at home. Probably. They beat Arkansas and A&M on the road. The biggest question with Texas, right, is going to be their secondary, and how does the offense gel together, right? Can Quinn Ewers stay healthy? The most important thing about that offense, though, is that the offensive line is still intact, including future potentially top 5, top 10 pick in Kelvin Banks at left tackle. That offensive line is so crucial for how the run game works, being able to, run multiple concepts on offense, being able to get screens, to get moving outside of the tackle box. You have a lot of things happening with that offensive line that they're able to do that is so crucial in how Sarkisian likes to run this offense that, we can talk all about the receivers who are being replaced, right? The running backs that get drafted, or if Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning is better, but that offensive line is really the motor behind that offense. And, they're going to lose I think they're going to lose to a really good Georgia team, but I think you could point to maybe an Oklahoma or maybe a Texas A&M or Florida. The thing is they play Florida in Austin. So I have a hard time seeing them lose that, but I think this Texas team is going to be really darn good. And
If Florida somehow wins that, I'm going to be on a list. I don't know what type of list, but I'm going to be on a list.
Yeah, like they do have a very favorable
Letting everybody
schedule.
know now.
And they do play Georgia at home. They have that going for them. So if you told me that they beat Georgia, it wouldn't shock me, but I do think that they're going to lose. I think that Georgia is just going to have the defense that's going to be able to stop them. But yeah, Texas, I think, is going to be the runner-up here because they're going to be the clear-cut, like, second best team in the SEC. I think that are the top two teams, in my opinion, right? For what I have, I think they're going to be like the clear cut, like there's not much doubt about it when the year's all said and done. Like, yes, those are clearly the two best teams in the conference. And then you're going to have a group of 5 or 6 teams who you can make arguments for, like, any order, right? Especially when it comes to playoff time, those teams are going to be tough to decide, who's ranked above who. But for me, what Texas lost, they replaced in abundance on offense. Only question is, what does the defense look like? And is their secondary as bad as they looked in their spring game?
Man, you make some really good points about the schedules. Like, it's so mixed up in the SEC where it's really pretty freaking even for everybody. Like, it's going to be a gauntlet. And that's the reason why, like, LSU is my runner-up, because I think they had the most favorable schedule if they can put all the pieces together. Now, that's just not it. I mean, playing USC, they play on week 1, right? So
week one in Vegas.
So I think they go in and they beat USC while they're still trying to figure out what their team identity is. I don't think they figure it out until a couple weeks later. So I think they're just going in there and trying to figure it out. On the other side, Ole Miss has got like all the hype, but I don't see it. I've tried to dissect that team so many different times, and I just don't see them beating an LSU. And here's why I think they beat LSU. There was 2 significant transfers that nobody talks about that LSU got. And what was the weakest part of LSU's defense last year?
I mean, the secondary, but all of it was pretty terrible.
I mean, it was all bad.
But the secondary was the one. So they pick up J.K. Johnson and Jair Brown. Both are from Ohio State. And they pull them down to LSU. I think those guys are going to be really good, and them coming over with each other, not being the direct starters out there at Ohio State, now they get their chance. I don't care what anybody says. Motivation is a big factor to anything, and they're going to make every single point to come out there and start locking people down. I would love to see what they're going to look like against Texas's wide receivers. I mean, Silas Bolden is a dog. I've been saying that forever.
Interesting.
But I mean, they've gotten a bunch in the transfer portal. It's all going to come down to Garrett Nussmeier, and I think Garrett Nussmeier's, he's going to be pretty good. I think. I know Jackson Arnold, they have him out there, and I just don't see Jackson Arnold being all that great like people really really thinks he's going to be. But what I see from Garrett Nussmeier, I've gone back and I watched a couple of his clips, how he practices, what some people have been saying about him, what his former trainer has said about his maturation process. Like, I try to read up into like all that stuff before I make a decision on where I like to place teams. I mean, because of course we don't have all the answers, right? We're not going to be able to see all that stuff. So a lot of this is trusting what some of the media and some of what his, well, of course there's going to be bias in anything, but I don't know. I can't doubt a Brian.
So
yeah, and I can't doubt Brian Kelly and what he's done at any team that he's gone to. And every time that I doubt this dude, I continuously get smacked in the freaking mouth. I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly fan. I'm not
either.
But I can't not knock the fact that the dude recruits his butt off, will utilize the transfer portal, and to pull 2 guys from Ohio State together, like, that deserves a feather in your cap for going to go get some guys that have got big chips on their shoulders. So, but that's why I got LSU there. It's just more so their schedule is so favorable to me. I mean, and then I'm just not one that drinks the Ole Miss Kool-Aid right now. I don't.
I'm telling you, that needs to be a topic. I will give you a 30-minute rant.
Well, I'm not, to close this out, with the Ole Miss thing, I'm not the biggest fan of Jackson Dart. I'm just not. How I feel about Jackson Dart is almost exactly how I felt about JJ McCarthy. I don't see it, brother. I really don't. I understand that he can do this and that, but the dude is inconsistent, man. And when he's inconsistent, guess who he had in the backfield? Quinshon Judkins, man.
And Ulysses Bentley, who was really solid at SMU.
And the wide receivers got him out of a lot of tough situations. They went up there and grabbed when he short armed the throw. They went up there and grabbed it, man. There was plenty of games like that.
You want to talk about somebody overrated again? Let's get on that Princely Umani Melon topic. Come on, come on. I've had it loaded for weeks, Dante. Come on.
I know. I mean, I know Ole Miss. They got loaded in the transfer portal, but I'm gonna stay consistent, just like I stay consistent about Colorado. Expecting these guys to gel all the way together after 1 year with Lane Kiffin out of all coaches, I'm not a big believer of that. So, but Sor, why do you have Georgia as a runner-up?
Yeah, now I just want to know who you have beating them.
I've already. What do you mean? I've made this known since we've done our SEC record prediction.
I know, but the people that are not going to be able to see that, they're going to see this video. You know, So with Georgia, looking at their schedule again, it's pretty easy. Again, it's going to be interesting. Like I mentioned earlier with the Clemson, I think it's going to go back to that simple 10-3 of just both teams trying to figure out, because a lot of talent is gone. You know, yes, you still have Carson Beck. You know, whether you love or hate him, I think he's all right. I don't think he's, you know, the best quarterback that everybody's talking about, but you know, you look at it, offensive weapons. You've lost Brock Bowers. You've lost Ladd McConkey. You've lost Rosemary St. Jackson, or I'm pretty sure I said that. I might have said that. Rosemary Jackson.
Rosemary Jackson.
Yeah,
a lot of abbreviations in that guy, but yeah. You know, you did lose a lot of your main weapons. Now, again, I think Oscar Delp pretty much is just going to pick up, not exactly replace what Brock Bowers did, but I think he's still going to be your number one weapon.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the only one that believes that he is, bro, because Oscar Delp is that dude. But go ahead. I digress. No, I didn't mean
What do you mean
to,
believe that he is? He is going to be their number one weapon. That's what or are you saying that he's going to pick up exactly where Brock Bowers
yeah, Brock Bowers is a different.
Yeah, you're the only. That man was.
And don't forget about Ben Urasek, who was a really probably the best tight end 2 in the country.
Yep.
A lot of, you know, just which I get it. Kirby Smart always replenishes, but a lot of arrests, a lot of drafts. And again, I just, you know, you look at it. The Clemson for me is a toss-up. I think it's just going to be a slug out of both these teams trying to figure out what they want to do. You know, Alabama, yes, I have Georgia winning against Alabama, but it is at Alabama, and it's the first SEC play for both teams. So who knows what's going to happen there. Let me see what else they've got here. Tennessee Tech, no, I'm kidding. Sorry, Kentucky is their first, and then it's to Alabama. But that's, you know, 2 straight games on the road. Auburn, you know, as much as we hate Auburn, if it wasn't for Brock Bowers, they would have lost that game. Mississippi State, I think they'll win that. Texas, at Texas will be a toss-up. They'll probably still beat Florida by 21 points like they've been doing for the past 3 years. Old Miss will be interesting. Tennessee will be interesting. I think they'll beat both of them, but it'll still be interesting. And then, you know, they end off with cupcakes of UMass and Georgia Tech. So I think they're definitely going to probably end up on top of the SEC. But on top, I think they'll end up as the number 1 seed, but I think they will lose in the SEC playoffs. So that is why I have them as runner up. It's just, there's question marks, man. What is Texas going to look like? Because again, it's at Texas. They face Bama at Bama. It's going to be interesting. What type of Auburn are we going to get? The Auburn that almost beat them? The Auburn in the first 3 quarters, and then Brock Bowers had to carry them? You know, is Oscar Delp going to be able to do that? I'm not saying it's going to be an exact repeat of last year for the Auburn game, but let's not forget the fact that it literally took Brock Bowers turning into Superman to save them.
They
from
did
that game.
also almost play way too close against Vanderbilt this past year, and arguably Georgia Tech for a short period.
And I mean that first half. That's what I'm saying as well, and that is
right.
part of the reason that I don't. If they still had Stetson Bennett for another year, I think they would have three-peat. I think part of that does lie on why can I not remember their quarterback?
Carson
now?
Beck.
Carson Beck. Thank you. I almost said Brock Vandergriff, I don't know why. I do think part of that does happen to land on Carson Beck. You know how we all thought that well, I don't know if you thought of Khalid because you weren't with us then, but like Dante and I were saying that Brock Bowers should have been the first overall pick to the Bears. And then you could have gotten like a quarterback at the 10th or kept Justin Fields, but still, like that's how
how the draft went now. Like,
yeah, like Brock Bowers literally was the best weapon, the best player in all of America. Well,
the best
in all of
offensive
college, best offensive player.
The best defensive player was Adrian Cooper.
Yeah, best draft prospect. Any one of us could have been quarterback, and he would have carried us to victory. I just don't think Oscar Delp or any of these other weapons are going to be able to carry Carson Beck like that. Again, I still think Georgia will be in the SEC championship, whether they be the number 1 or the number 2 seed, but I still think they lose in the SEC championship.
Well, let's see what the other guys runner-ups are.
I just don't think Carson Beck's all that.
Don's got Texas.
Oklahoma's interesting.
That's interesting from Tony, especially.
Yeah, and Tony's is Oklahoma.
I know that had to. Is Tony in the chat? Tony, I know that had to hurt.
He said he was going to be here. I don't see him.
Miss.
ECG runner-up is going to be Texas. They win the majority of the runners-up.
I'm gonna need Hayden to explain Ole Miss.
I mean, I think he's going based off the hype that these dudes are getting.
I guess, and
I mean, a lot of people are.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
especially this man Fishing in the chat. Fishing, put money on it, bro.
Is Fishing in the chat right now?
Yeah, he's in the chat. Fishing talking all that junk. He said they're going to run scorched earth against LSU's defense. Okay, buddy. Tony, if you don't have Georgia in the SEC championship. All right, so that's the runners up. So right now, if you're going to put a bet on anything, bet on the ECG runner-up being the Texas Longhorns.
I just, yeah.